think we have a really, really cool topic today. Um, I believe that actually, Clark, you had mentioned this when I was looking for topic ideas. You had mentioned this kind of finding balance and trying to maintain your sanity when you're doing kind of anything in IT. So thank you for throwing this suggestion out there. And I think it's going to be a really good conversation, and hopefully people will be able to take away some things that they can actually do to help improve their own balance in this always on job. So, but if you are new to the IT Leadership Lab, welcome in. This is a community that is dedicated to IT leaders. You can share content, learn from your peers, build community, and kind of build up that network of IT leaders that you can lean on. And then you can also help, because everyone has some really good experience that they might not realize that would help some other people. So we host bi-monthly webinars to discuss these various IT leadership topics, and we bring leaders within the space that can share their expertise as well. Rather than just having somebody present, we have these kind of panels where we talk about these topics and just have a chat. So like I mentioned earlier, this topic is going to be about finding balance. I think working in IT, even if you're not an IT leader, it's already difficult to find a balance. But then you add all of the IT leadership responsibilities that make it even more difficult for you to find a balance that actually works for you. So in this stream, we'll be talking about what makes that balance so difficult to find. And then what you can actually do to positively impact your job, your day-to-day, your organization, to make time for the things that matter outside of work. So I know that to a lot of people, it might seem like it's impossible to find a balance, but I think that there are some people, these two in particular, that will be able to share how they actually find that balance and maintain it. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it off. Marcus, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your journey in IT.
Yeah. So Marcus Stewart, Vice President of Technology for Achievement First. In my journey in technology, my kind of claim to fame is in the organization that I work for. I have held every position from on the ground, break fix tech, all the way up to the position I'm in now. So I've had to figure out the right path and how to get things done with this always on culture, from being on the ground all the way to this leadership position.
Awesome. Yeah, we were talking a little bit backstage. You're currently always on. I think you're always on right now, specifically because y'all have the first day of school coming up. So
Yeah. It's been a marathon for the last couple of months as we got ready for school, but tomorrow's our big day, so that's when things will finally, at least from an IT perspective, things will calm down. From a teacher perspective, things are, but for us, they calm down.
yeah. Well, I'm sure you'll have a lot of insight then on how you maintained any sort of balance during that time. Clark, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself as well? I'm sure plenty of people know who you are, but
yeah, sure. So Clark Sandlin, President CEO of Zerka. We're a managed IT service provider for private equity, family offices, and high net worth individuals. Highly specialized. Been in business for 22 years now, and talk about always on. Run your own business. You're going to be always on for sure, especially in IT. At a IT business owner, and that's just the worst of all worlds.
Yeah. I really I'm glad that you wanted to be on this one, because I think that you in particular have like a lot of things that you do outside of work, and a lot of ways that you kind of maintain some sense of self outside of IT. And yeah, I think that you'll have some really good insights on this particular subject. So well, thank y'all for being on. Really appreciate you taking out the time in y'all's busy schedules to to hop into this discussion. I'll go ahead and just kick things off with an opening question. How do you personally define work-life balance or balance in general as an IT leader? And has that definition kind of evolved over the course of your career?
I'll start. So it definitely has evolved over the course of my career. I think when I was much younger, before I had a family and all that kind of stuff, it was just like, oh, I can work till 10 o'clock at night or 9 o'clock or whatever. Like I can just do that type of stuff. And there were times where it was just like really tired and stuff like that. But I probably, when I hit my 30s or so, that's when I realized I was like, I can't, if I want to be long term in this particular type of role or this particular type of position, I have to kind of figure out, I have to define like, okay, there's a time for work and there's a time for other stuff. So, there was a time where work life balance before my family was, hey, how can I have a time to go out and hang out with friends playing football or going out to drinks or trivia night or something like that? Just something to like make sure that it is not just work 24/7. And then after I had my family, it was more like, okay, how do I make sure like I know what's going on, but I don't have to necessarily be around to quote unquote know what's going on. And that was probably the most trickiest part of it all. But it's been like having clearly defined times of like cutting off, quote unquote, cutting off work, to be like, okay, I am stepping away at that time has been the constant evolution throughout my journey.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. As far as like early on in my career, yeah, I'm staying up till 10, midnight, whatever, researching, learning, making myself better in my career. Um, but then, of course, as we all know, that leads to burnout. But for me, balance became doing something the polar opposite of what I do during the day, in the evening, on the weekends. Yes, I still research tech and things like that, but you know, get out and garden or raise chickens or whatever is something completely the opposite of what you know yeah, the technology during the day, because it activates the other side of your brain that you don't use all the time. Painting, I do that as well, sketching, things like that, and that's just complete opposite. And it's also almost kind of a form of meditation. I mean, heck, even mowing the yard can be meditation. So, you know, make sure you prioritize those kind of things, that because it's such a good reset, and that's what I found to be the best balance for not only for your sanity and your mind, but also physically as well.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I think that's great. I think that time we spend a lot of time on screen, like staring at a screen, and the more time that you can take not looking at screens, and I'm really very guilty of that. I spend a lot of my time looking at a screen, and I think it's really important to kind of have both activities, both on and off screens. Um, so, what is the most difficult part of taking that time and disconnecting when you're responsible for systems that shouldn't go offline? And what happens if they do? Um, is it drop everything and just start working on that? Um, I know this is
Mhm.
probably a tough question because it's part of the job, unfortunately.
Yeah, why don't you go first, Clark?
Okay, so yeah, that's always been it's a huge problem in IT, and I think everybody in a corporate environment, everyone is on call. But the problem with us in IT is that we affect the entire organization. Our work is very easily noticed when it's not working. So, of course, they're going to reach out, call, text, whatever to get a hold of you. So, you know, I've been in every situation, kind of like Marcus has been, and I've worked in a smaller shop where you're the on call rotation is every 2 weeks, and then in a larger organization where you've got the luxury of like maybe a couple of months rotation on the on call. But I think it's really, really important for sanity is to make sure there's always that on call or that call rotation in place. And for us internally, what we do is, we give whoever takes the on call the following week, they get the next Friday off. So it's very important to make sure that you also acknowledge that their time is important as well. And that if they are giving up time to cover that phone and be on the emergency on call. And then what that does is also helps out your more rotation, more options, and people can walk away from work and actually enjoy their weekend. So it's really important to do that. And if you're in a smaller organization, I think the best thing to do is to get a calling service. Get that approved in budget or whatever, and that way you're not really tied to a phone except for that one calling service, because they can kind of weed out the sales calls and all the nonsense that happens that accidentally comes through. And you can give them a little script to go through so that they can weed out whether this is really an emergency or not. So I did that for a while, and that was helpful also.
Yeah, I've never heard of that. Is it like specific vendors that you use or anything that? Oh, you cut out a little bit, Clark. Just a heads up.
There are there's a lot of Philippines companies that do call service
Oh, I see. Okay.
where they specialize in MSP as well, or tech.
Okay. Okay, gotcha. How about you, Marcus?
So for me, my organization has a clearly defined time when a lot of people are online activated, and Clark is correct. Like when IT goes down, people definitely notice. But I'm mainly worried about the regular business day for the most part. But the how we kind of handle off call or 24/7 stuff is we have a lot of our systems set up to kind of alert us when something major is happening. So we identified a couple of key things that if this thing happens, we use a platform called PagerDuty, where it sends us an alert. And so, like, because I don't necessarily have a large team, it's like myself and my senior network engineer and maybe one other person that get the kind of like this is the 1 a.m. kind of alert type of thing. But when I do it, I look at it, analyze the situation, and then we have other things to like alert people and stuff like that. But I think one of the most important things of like helping avoid like the 24/7 mentality of keeping it is like if you can configure your systems to let you know when they are having an issue, that kind of takes some of the mental load of like, oh, I have to check, I have to check, I have to check. Like, no, if you identify these 3 to 5 things that if they go down, like the site is having an issue, um, just configure that, and we have it set up to like it sends it in Slack, it sends it as a text message, it sends it as an email, like land, sea, and air, so that we are able to deal with it. And if we can't, like, odds are we're not going to be able to address it until the morning time, but us being alert to it allows us to let people know ahead of time, like, hey, in the morning you're going to have a problem. And that kind of it doesn't, obviously you got to deal with the problem, but that takes care of some of the like, I walk into the building and internet's not working. But if you walk into the building and internet's not working and IT is on top of it, that kind of like eases the stresses just a little bit, and allows us to operate within like the normal business hours of physical and present stuff.
hmm Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
automation is your
oh, sorry. Go
friend.
ahead.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
I wanted to ask kind of about those like emergency situations where you have uh obviously you get notifications from PagerDuty, you get notifications from whatever platform you're using that something is offline, that something is down. What do you do when someone comes to you and says they have an emergency? It is off hours, and you have to decide if it is a real emergency. What do you
I think
usually do to uh,
I think the answer to that is
ask
going to be
questions?
different for Clark and I. As an MSP, he may be like, "Who's paying the most money?" And
Yeah.
for my, it is, "What's your title?"
Yeah,
uh,
fair.
I think a lot of it is like, clarifying for us, we have SLAs with our customers, so we're able to point to those. And in that, we have defined, okay, how many people does this affect?
mhm.
And Marcus, obviously, to your point, is this person a C level person, right? VIP. Obviously, even if it's just like their email's not working, you're going to have to like deal with that issue as an emergency. But then, if it's other calls, right? You have to classify, okay, is this affecting everyone? You know, then this is not, if it's not, then it's not truly an emergency. It's critical. It's not, something that you have to drop everything for. And what's fortunate about MSP is you can, ding them for then, but it's not a systems down scenario. Then you can start, billing them hourly for that. You have those kind of mechanisms built in. And what we do is bonus the on-call tech for the mental anguish and the pain and suffering of being on call in addition to the day off on Friday. Um, because there's so many different scenarios. So um, it's been so long since I've worked in a corporate environment that you don't have that option, unfortunately.
Mhm.
But you can explain it to those C-level people is like, you know, listen, this is taking time out of my weekend, and this is not truly an emergency. Is there a way that I can deal with this on Monday? And sometimes when you talk it through, they'll be like, oh yeah, it's kind of a reminder. They're not thinking, they just, because a lot of people sometimes don't even know it's Saturday. They think it's like Wednesday. It's so sometimes it's a conversation and they say, oh no, absolutely, yes, I can deal with this on Monday.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I would agree with Clark on the last part of just like usually um, if someone reaches out to me that's a high enough level, it's a matter of just saying like, okay, here's here's what I can do right now, which I can do maybe just like, okay, I can confirm that only you are having the issue. But the actual deep dive of the thing is going to wait until the next day or the morning time or whatever type of thing. Because Car's correct. They're not usually thinking or just like I need this problem solved right now type of thing. And everyone in our world, I think everyone thinks their problem is the most important problem in the world at that particular time. But as a leader, it's my job to protect the time of our people. Like unlike Clark, like we can't ping people. We can't say like, okay, we're going to charge you more money for this type of thing. So the sweat equity, kind of the human resources, I have to be very cautious about that. And so what that also means is like I, as the first line of defense, will just say like, hey, I understand it's an emergency. We will get to it first thing in the morning, but we literally cannot deal with this at that particular moment. But also, if you are not at that high of a level, like just like with Clark, we also have internal SLAs, and our SLAs are defined by the business hours of like we do support between 8:30 a.m. and 5 p.m. Anything beyond that, it will just even if you put it in as a high priority, we will look at it and be like, I don't know about that, and we'll just let it sit until the morning time when someone can get to it in a regular course of business, type of thing.
Yeah, that's good. And I think in a corporate setting, you can also like with your staff or whoever is, okay, I know you worked like 3 hours on this critical issue over the weekend. Let's give you some time off,
Yeah, let's give
because
you some time back.
there's an ebb and flow in business. And sometimes if it's slow, you just say, hey, get out of here. And that's like the best thing you can do in
Mm.
those
Yeah.
types of environments.
And I will say, like, to kind of the point of like, there is only one type of emergency that we will deal with like right then and there, and that's an emergency offboarding. Like, hey,
Yeah.
if this person has access, they are going to burn the house down, type of thing. We're like, all right, we'll
Right.
get on that type of thing. That's the only type of emergency that, regardless if it comes from anyone that's like, hey, we believe this person is, going to do something, we will just respond to that quickly, regardless of level or something like that.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. I think that's just there are some tasks that are just kind of part of it. I'm sure.
Yeah.
Um, have y'all ever experienced any pushback whenever you set boundaries, whether it's in this position now or previous positions? And how do you kind of overcome those that pushback?
Yes, definitely have received pushback. And like, I just to reiterate what Clark said, of just like the initial pushback usually comes from like, this is an emergency, blah, blah, type of thing. But if you connect with the person, just say like, okay, usually the way that I handle it is like, what part of this emergency can I do right now to make you feel better, to so that we can get to doing the rest of it, doing it. And it may just be like, can you do this one thing? And it's like, okay, I can do this one thing. But the other 90% of the emergency takes place during the regular business hours. But usually when there's pushback, it is usually just, let's if it's a strong enough pushback, let's just get on a call and let's hash it out real quick. Because it's much better for me to spend 10 minutes talking to you about like, hey, this is what we can and can't do, versus a 30-minute or an hour back and forth of email where that person is possibly, because again, they believe it's an emergency, they are just getting more and more agitated and frustrated and all that kind of stuff. And you're just like, I can just settle this with a 10-minute conversation and handle it, at least part of it, that way.
Hmm.
Marcus, that's one firm boundary that I set very early on, even in the corporate environment, is if this is an emergency, you're picking up the phone and calling us. No emails, no texts, nothing. We don't respond to email emergencies, because what happened is somebody just drop a bomb and say, hey, I can't work, my computer's dead, send an email, and then you try and contact them and you can't get a hold of them for hours. So then you're tying up, your time, which is totally unfair to you or your staff. So that's one firm boundary I have, is it's got to be on the phone. And, that way we can remote in, troubleshoot. We have you to like enter passwords or whatever we need to do. So that's number one for me. And then the rest of it's just kind of a dialogue, right? So when you're on a call, it's easier to have that human conversation versus hiding over email or hiding over text or whatever. Uh, they understand you're a human, it's your time, and usually they're very apologetic. They're like, "Look, I know it's the weekend, but I'm working this deal, and I really got to get this done." And then the same conversation is, "Okay, what can I do to get you back up and running quickly? What's and once you have that dialogue, they're very respectful of your time, and especially if they're on the phone for it with you.
Hmm. Yeah. Have y'all ever hit a point where you experienced burnout and realized that you needed to make a change and introduce more balance and do stuff that can actually uh, help you recover and be a better manager?
Yeah, for I think the best piece of self advice I gave myself is like I'm a night owl by nature. Like I can stay up late and it's very easy for me, but uh nothing really good. No, nothing really good happens in terms after like midnight. In terms of me thinking clearly and all that kind of stuff. I can sneak in like 1 or 2 more hours here, but the quality just goes downhill. And it's just because like my brain has been working all day and solving all problems and all that kind of stuff. And so like I kind of set a boundary for myself. And because again, when I was early in the year, I was like, oh, I can stay up till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning easily, type of thing. But that's the one thing I did set as like, look, if it looks like I'm obviously if there's an emergency, I will do what I need to do. But um, I set a boundary of like, look, if I have to go back to do some night work because things linger and all that kind of stuff, I will set a firm boundary. If it's 11:30, no, I'm not even starting because that it's just not going to be good. It's not going to be good. And then also being very clear about weekends. I kind of also set for myself of like the if you have not discovered it within your email platform, discover it of delayed emails of just being like, hey, I need to send this now before I forget type of thing. But it's Friday at 5 o'clock. I don't need to. It doesn't need to be read right now. I just need to
Yeah.
do it because I will forget about it. It can be sent on Monday at 9 o'clock very easily. But those two things have really helped because it sends a clear message to my folks of like, I'm not sending. I have a rule of like, I will unless it's an absolute emergency, I will not communicate to you about work stuff over the weekend or overnight. I will just write it down and then schedule it to be sent to you during the regular business hours.
Mhm. Yeah, that honestly saved me a lot. I found scheduled Slack messages, and I was like, oh, that that actually helps so much because otherwise I will forget to send the message. And you know, sometimes it'll be like somebody's on vacation in Slack, and I don't want to bother them, but I do need to make sure that I remember to send a message. Yeah, scheduling emails and messages are it's so helpful.
Hmm.
How about you, Clark? Did you ever face kind of a burnout situation where you kind of felt like you needed to make changes?
Uh, yeah, fairly regularly. I mean, it's I do so much in both personal and professional time that it's very important to just make time for yourself to just not do anything and schedule that beach that 3-day beach vacation or whatever, just randomly just get out of town and truly relax and let go. um the most helpful thing for me for burnout was to cross train my team, uh create a disaster recovery plan. And my bosses have always told me that, you know always try and work yourself out of a job because that will make you irreplaceable. um Always have somebody who can fill in for you. Always have somebody that can do your job. Silos never help the team at all. Having everybody cross trained so that everyone can go on vacation and just be, not be disturbed is the most important part for handling burnout, not only for yourself but for your staff.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
would definitely agree with that. Like one of the things when I stepped into this leadership role, like one of the things I made sure was not only in terms of cross training, like hey you can do this type of thing, but also to the people above me and around me because like I as the leader can be the face of it, like oh it's an it problem, I go to markets type of thing. But I was intentional about being like no actually this person my friend Virgil, he's responsible for this, and Robert is responsible for this. I know about all this stuff, but they are the ones that are going to go to the meeting. They are the ones that are going to be the face of it. They're the ones that are going to engage with it and all that kind of stuff. And like obviously I keep track of all of it, but doing that is a matter of sending a message to the outside folks that like I am not the only person that you can come to get an IT problem solved. And to me, that's another way of avoiding burnout, because when you feel like the world is all on your shoulders and no one else can do anything and no one else can answer the questions or whatever, that speeds up dramatically burnout. But being able to like, I have, like Clark said, I have been able to like go on week long vacations and been like, okay, the house is not going to burn down because everyone knows what they're supposed to do. If there's a problem, everyone knows who to go to for that. And it's not just I go to Marcus, Marcus is not here, nothing can get done type of mentality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's got to be really hard to be that person that everyone goes to, because yeah, it gives you no time off.
But I will say one last thing, because I know like probably Clark and I talk from a perspective of like we have other people to like do that
Mm-hmm.
stuff with. So I want to say for the person out there who's like, I am I am one person, like how do I avoid burnout and all that kind of stuff? Even with that way, like we kind of said it before, like automation is your friend and it's helpful. And there's plenty of tools out there, like we use Scribe or Zeit or something where you can create, like Clark said, like he and his team made like disaster recovery plans. Like, hey, if you want to do this type of thing, do this type of thing. But being able to use tools that allow you to quickly make, for probably a non-technical person, if you're the only one, of some documentation of like, hey, if I'm out and you have a question about the phone system, this is the scribe that like walks you through what you need to know and all that kind of stuff. Just making that repository so that if you don't have a human person that they can refer to, you can at least refer them to some form of documentation that's like, here's the most common things that you're going to run into while I'm probably out, type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very good point, Marcus. Is the automation part for a one man shop or maybe a two person, whatever. But um, it seems like, and I don't know if it's true everywhere, but it seems like people are more likely to sign off on automation projects than hiring a full time person or something like that. So, I mean, there's so many things you can automate, like what you mentioned earlier about those employee terminations. We have it set up to where we have a subject line, terminate such and such account, and you use the email address, and it's all automated through Ninja and through Intune, Microsoft Intune. So those are helpful things. And if you can hire a programmer, the most companies are more likely to hire a programmer for those small automation projects that really save you a lot of time. And then make sure you make up for your time by taking an afternoon off sometime during the week.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I also think that you can also use, that automation and scripting and things like that as a learning tool for your team. So if somebody in your team wants to learn more about, engineering and stuff like that, then you can have them on that project. And so it can all kind of feed into each other and make sure that you're hitting multiple priorities at once. I also linked in the chat the documentation stream that Marcus was actually on, I believe. If anybody is looking at getting some documentation set up, there are some really great tips in there that you can use to build out your documentation if you're kind of starting from scratch or trying to improve yours. Y'all had already mentioned this a little bit, but I wanted to talk about how you communicate to your team the need for balance, and whether that is actual communication, things that you tell your team, or how you are demonstrating balance in your own day to day to show them that it's okay that they can also take time for themselves too. So wanted to touch a little bit about that, and how you're communicating that with your team.
So I'm glad that you said it was like, how are you demonstrating it? Because I'm a strong believer in that actions speak louder than words. So I can say like you should have balance and all this kind of stuff, but if I'm not demonstrating it, no one is like, oh, he doesn't really mean it, type of thing. So that's why, in terms of demonstrating, is like, like I said, like I don't communicate over the weekends. I don't communicate at night, type of thing. I try to be respectful of that. But also because people have family issues that come up, personal issues that come up all the time. I'm very much like, take the time that you need, because I know, kind of like Clark was saying before, like you're probably going to make up the time in some other way. We work in IT. So like you're gonna, like if you take 30 minutes here, you're probably going to work 30 more minutes or an hour later on, because you're trying to make up for the time or whatever. And so it's just like, just making sure that you communicate with the folks and demonstrate with the folks of like, look, I want you to have balance. To me especially, as like, we have been very fortunate in our team that we have a lot of long tenured folks in our team, in our squad. But what that also means is they've got families and commitments, and there's graduations and weddings and all the other stuff that they want to do. And I'm very in childbirths, and all that kind of stuff. I'm very much like, go do those things. Like, go make sure that you make time for, because those are like, I think I told like one of my former bosses when he was leaving, of like, the 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 equipment, the structures that we make, all the programming and coding and all that kind of stuff, that's all temporary. Eventually, it's going to get replaced, it's going to get terminated, it's going to get destroyed, and all that kind of stuff. But the impact that you have on somebody else, either at work by demonstrating balance, or by actually being there for your family and friends and all that kind of stuff, that's going to outlive anything that you do while you are working here. And so I want you to go and do those things, because you don't get those moments back. You don't get, those things. And like, no one has ever been on their deathbed and been like, I wish I worked more, type of thing. So it's like, go and get those moments, because to me, I like to play the long game of like, if you feel that way, and you feel like that the organization, the company, whatever, is like giving you that kind of ability to be your full self, live your life, you're more likely to actually stay there longer. And if you leave, you're actually more likely to suggest to another person, hey, this was a good company to work for. Like, you're looking for a job, this is a great place to work for. And so like, it's the flywheel effect of like, you treat people good, good people will grow and stay with you. And if they happen to leave for whatever reason, they will help bring in other good people for you, of just like, hey, this is a great place to work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the only thing I would really add to that is, IT people are generally harder than themselves anyway. They have a very high bar, tend definitely service oriented. But it's also, as a IT leader, they're not very cognizant of when they are burning out or when they are doing too much. And part of our job as an IT leader is to make sure that, one, they recognize that and you point it out. And then two is to mentor them as to how they can, improve their situation. And sometimes uh, it's really a matter of, ADHD. You've got so many things coming at you and from all different directions. It's more of like prioritizing, like, this is urgent. 4 quadrants from Stephen Covey is help them figure out how to determine what is a priority, what is urgent, what is not, what is a waste of time, what you can put on the back burner. So I think mentorship is really the best way to kind of help them tackle their prioritizations of the day. And I even used to give just like have our meetings and just say, hey, just get these 3 things done today, and we're ahead of the game. And that helped free a lot of people from, oh my goodness, now I don't have to think about what's next. Here's this, okay, 1's done, let's move on to 2. Okay, 3's done. Good, I'm done for the day. Wow. And you free up their mental real estate.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I popped a link to a PDF that kind of has that 4 quadrants thing. Sorry, it's a very long link. I don't know why it appeared like that, but yeah, I definitely feel that there are some things that I find myself doing where I realize that it's not as urgent as it seems to be. So, um, yeah, I think that is really, really great advice all around. I, you know, whenever I talk about my job, and I'm like complaining about my job, I realize that they're pretty small. And like just having flexibility, having the ability to take PTO and things like that is it's just so helpful. And even my personal, not my manager, it's like my manager's manager's manager, and he talks about how important it is for us to take PTO, and then also he recently took PTO, so it's like really great to recognize. And he tells us all the time, he's like, I know I work too much sometimes and I know that I need to be better about it. And so it's really nice to hear that he is like, I am working too much, I'm doing, like, y'all do not need to be always on. And of course I work in something completely different than IT, but having a manager, a boss that can actually demonstrate those qualities is really, really helpful.
And
um,
I want to co-sign what Clark was saying about like recognizing in other people, because especially as a leader, not even as a leader, but as a senior IT person, um, just recognizing those things now that I can see in somebody coming up, of just being like, look, I know that you could do the 4 things, or you could do all that stuff. Like everything is possible, but let's focus on like what actually needs to get done and all that kind of stuff. And like, to me, the way that I explain it to folks is like, let's version it, like get version 1 out, get it, like get the bare, not the bare minimum, but get the working version out, because you could always iterate, you could always nickel and dime, you can always do that stuff. But then they're like, oh well, I can't do it until I, like, let's get it out the door, so that, like Clark said, it's off your plate. It frees up that mental real estate. And the other part about it, as an IT person, Clark's correct, and like we do have like a higher bar. And we're like, oh, it could do this, it could do that, and blah blah blah. But sometimes I've had to take a step back sometimes and be like, it could do that, but what's the person on the other end like? Do they need that? Is that like, are you putting so much refinement into this that is actually not useful for the person that you, or it's taking so long for you to solve the problem, which then leads to burnout because you feel like, because if you are not able to let something go or get it out the door, you're not able to release that mental real estate, which then again leads to more burnout because you feel like I have to juggle 7 things at the same time, versus like, actually you could get 4 things off your plate if you just like get it going, and then you only have to juggle 3 things.
mhm. What are some signs that y'all see in somebody that may be experiencing burnout that you can kind of pick up on so that you can talk to them about it potentially and ask them how they're doing?
Well, for me,
Um,
it's
go ahead.
disorganization. Like you can see if somebody's very disorganized and they're trying to remember everything in their head, that's an important one to help them create a way to keep track of things. The other thing is, we're in IT, so everything's just kind of we're getting attacked from so many different angles, and it's difficult to find time to do projects and things that are more proactive. So, another thing that can be done is to implement, make sure you have a rotating not just on call, but also rotating project time. And we've done this recently in the past, well, last year, where, okay, you get 4 hours of project time to come up with something proactive or to automate something. And that's just a huge relief for everybody involved because they know that they have this time to focus and concentrate on this one little aspect of their job, and then the rest of it's kind of for putting out fires and things like that. But they also have that other staff who's primary on, tech support or whatever, and taking care of the escalations so that they can work on the projects.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with like the kind of like being disorganized, or sometimes it's like there there's a change in like especially if they were like a high performer, or they were a high performer and like they're getting stuck, like they just
Yeah.
can't get going on something. You're like, okay, what's going on here? And to something Clark said earlier, is just like sometimes when you're stuck, it's just a matter of like you're stuck because you've actually been focusing on the problems for too long and too hard,
Yep.
and you feel like you can't get out of your own way type of thing. And so like that's when I've had a conversation with folks of just like, hey, actually put it to the side for a second and go work on something else, take some time or whatever, so that you can come back to it with fresh eyes. But usually it's like I feel like I have too much on my plate and I can't get rid of anything. That's also a sign of burnout, because to me that sounds like you have too many things on your plate, but are you actually letting them go? Are you trying, like I just said, are you trying to get them to too perfect of a position that you can't just get it out the door and get it in people's hands and iterate on that, type of thing? We're not saying stop, but we're just saying like get it out the door, get it in people's hands, so that one, it's not just in your head, and you can actually get the response from people. But then the other part is like, okay, how are you being organized, all that kind of stuff. Because I work with like multiple colleagues where it's just been like, let's write stuff down, let's write it down and let's get it out of your head, and let's work on it together, and that kind of stuff, like helping them like mentally process some stuff. Like, it feels to me like once you clear up the cobwebs in a sense, it really gets people, okay, now I can keep doing the work. But it's usually they get stuck in some capacity is the first sign for me that they might be experiencing a version of burnout.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I want to kind of close the discussion out talking about what y'all are doing now that helps you maintain that balance. And how has it kind of positively impacted you on a day-to-day basis, and kind of helped you maintain your sanity a little bit, and kind of just give people some ideas on how they can actually move forward and maintain that balance.
Um, so right now, the thing I'm doing is having very clearly defined times where like I am working. I think that is so important. And like to me, like getting my kids to school in the morning is the most important thing. So like having clear defined like meeting as a leader, meetings can eat up a, a lot of your time and all that kind of stuff. So just having that clearly defined time of like, okay, this is the time I'm available to troubleshoot or talk to anybody, but these are the times in which I can take meetings and stuff like that. Makes it very clear for everyone because it's built into my schedule, where it's like, look, I can do this type of stuff and all that kind of stuff. And I've had people understand that of just like, hey, this is what's important to you. This is what keeps me from avoiding burnout, type of thing. And it's a very simple thing for me, just being able to do that type of stuff. But then I think someone once told me is like being able to have like Clark said earlier, having things outside of your work that you do. So I always say people, I'm a big video gamer, and the reason that I like video games is my world is like for the most part filled with hard problems, sometimes difficult to solve problems, multi-day problems, and all that kind of stuff. And when I play a video game, like I know there's a solution. I know there's an endpoint. I know that okay, I'm going to get over this hill and there's going to be something else and there's an ending to it. And that kind of like, because every day, every one of my day is not filled with like, I finished the thing type of thing. It's like, I finished part of the thing type of thing, or I helped somebody else. But there's not every day that's filled with like, I accomplished something type of thing. So a video game really helps me with that of like, it gives me that kind of endorphin rush of like you accomplish something, you finish something in 30, 45 minutes or whatever. And that again helps like release the tension, gets me in a different headspace than the problem that I've been working with all day.
Hmm.
Yeah. To add to that, I think I've shared with everybody my planning system and how I go about organizing my week, but just kind of reiterate, like I sit down on Sunday, and this is part of your boundaries as well, and you make a commitment to yourself. Okay, so this week I'm starting my 30-day ab challenge, or I'm committed to my exercise, or those kind of things. So I write that down, and then you prioritize that. And what I do next is I insert those in my calendars every single day. So I have workout for 30 minutes in the morning, walk, hike, whatever in the afternoon. Um, just everything that's important to me: draw, paint, garden, whatever. So insert those as calendar appointments as a commitment to yourself every single day. And I get that emergencies come up, and something may come up during that time, or you may have stayed up the night before working on a server issue and you sleep in a little bit, but at least you can move those appointments because you look at it and it reminds you, I made a commitment to myself to do this week, and you just move it to some other time. So it releases that having to keep track of absolutely everything you want to do for yourself. And it's just that reminder that hangs out there. And I've had, I'm a morning person, the exact opposite of Marcus. I get up at 5 every morning, and it's very important that I have all those things that I do for myself in the morning before I hit work. And then I also segment like the less mentally challenging stuff in the afternoon, because I usually extinguish all my mental capacity in the morning. So I do the rote stuff and call the bank, or do the accounting stuff, the stuff that you can do by rote or repetitious. That's another way to kind of help with the burnout a little bit, so you're not constantly on fire with everything. So, and I teach this to my team, and that's the other part that's very important, is to show them, make a commitment to yourself, not just for work, but also the personal items. Those are probably the most important piece, because if you're not making progress personally, you certainly can't make it professionally.
Hmm. Yeah, no, that is so true. I wanted to read Denise's comment in chat because I think it's a really good example of things that you maybe shouldn't be doing. Not Denise, but her boss. It was a bit rough the 10 days before my husband passed away. At the time, I was a two-person team. He has 2 strokes. I needed to be at home. Called my director, said I needed to be home, kept him updated. No one knew what was going on, so I was getting calls and tickets. He put a stop to that quick. I guess the manager's good. HR is the issue. HR had other ideas. That Friday, they wanted paperwork stating that my husband was in hospice. I had to scramble. Leadership needs to have some compassion/understanding. Life happens. It wasn't like I was on vacation, and I think that's a great example. It seems like the director understood, but HR wanted paperwork while she's dealing with like one of the toughest times in her life, and it's something that I think that it needs to be said. Don't do that. It's don't don't request paperwork during that time. Like she said, it wasn't like she was on vacation. So, you know, it's a prime example of just like showing compassion to your team can be a big way in it can be a big way to keep people on your team and keep people um, like good talent like within your organization. So I just wanted to kind of call out that
Yeah,
story
that's
and
terrible.
yeah.
Yeah, I hate to get I don't want to get on my HR soapbox, but sometimes they are the less feeling part of the organization when they should be the first.
Yeah, I will agree with Clark of just like you would think that the human resources team uh, would be the most empathetic of teams within the organization, but uh, that may not always be the case because I believe like they're trying to follow some standard or whatever, which is like there's a time and a place for
Mhm.
that.
Yes.
I think you can ask for the paperwork, but okay, do it 2 weeks. Nothing's going to change.
Yeah.
Like, give the person the space. Then, so again, this is where like actions speak louder than words. I'm good for her director for stepping in and like to the best of their ability, putting a squash to that type of stuff. Like, that's the type of leaders that hopefully we are talking to and with in this community of just people like because at the end of the day it's like we are all people trying to do our best every day. And while others may think we're magicians and we can do all great things, and like we are not, we are humans, and we have our limitations, and life happens 100%. And uh, I think sometimes people forget that technology is not always 100% reliable, and so they're just like, well, when it goes down, I need to reach out to you. It's like, no, it's like when it goes down, we'll deal with it. But let's keep in mind that who's on the other end, that it's another human.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I think that a lot of the time people see technology as, IT's job is to serve the technology. They take care of that, but technology should serve us, and we shouldn't be sitting there spending a lot of time, requiring ourselves to be like constantly connected. I think it's really nice to like be able to set boundaries, which can be a lot harder than just saying set boundaries. So, um, well, we're coming up on time, and I know y'all are super swamped. So I just want to say thanks for hopping on today. Oh, thank you for the book recommendation, Clark.
I
Can
always
you
have a
speak to it
book
a
for
little bit?
something.
What was that?
Huh? I always have a book recommendation for something. So
Yeah. Have you read this one?
yes, Boundaries for Leaders. I've read it several times. Yeah, it's a really good book.
Sweet. Awesome. I'll make sure it gets in the recap as well. Um, well, thank y'all for taking the time out of y'all's day today to talk about this topic. I think that there's a lot of really really good takeaways, and hopefully people that were able to join are able to take some of this and into their day to day and hopefully get some time to themselves. So we'll be back actually next week. We have our super big summit. Let me grab the link for that. If anybody has not RSVP'd for it, we have 5 different sessions happening on next Tuesday. We're going to starting a little bit earlier since we have so many people. It's going to start at 10 a.m. Central, and it's going to be through Zoom. So you'll have to register for it using that link, and then you'll be able to join the summit. But yeah, we've got like 5 different speakers, all covering the theme of fault tolerance and resilience. So not just technology, but also the systems you have in place, the people you have in place, things like that. So it should be really, really awesome if y'all are able to join. Definitely go and RSVP. We're also going to be posting some of the recordings of the streams on YouTube also. But if you join live, there'll be a chance for you to ask questions and chat and engage there. So yeah, it should be a really, really good time. All right. Well, thank you all so much
Yeah.
for joining again. I really appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank
Yeah,
you for having
thank
us.
you. All right. Have a good rest of the day.